Aaron and his crew up here while I talk a little bit about them. The investors in innovation, perhaps the most critical part of this, because what this panel is all about is to look at both the kind of the macro environment of what do the numbers say about the investment ecosystem? What do the angel investors say? What do the high risk people say? What do the Texas businesses think about this? So kind of looking at this as an investment proposition and the value proposition of these services within the critical infrastructure security framework here in Texas. So to give us that perspective, we have our moderator, Mr. Aaron Demerson, who is the president and CEO of the Texas Economic Development Corporation. But also in this and his previous experience as a commissioner on the Texas Workforce Commission, Aaron has a deep and profound understanding and a passion for developing and advocating for talent, innovation, and place development. Ms. Corey Castillo, part of the Texas Comptroller's leadership team. I'm not going to say all of the teams that you supervise, but some of the ones of notoriety include communications, information services, data analysis, transparency, infotech. Those are probably the most germane to this, but you have many others in your portfolio. Dr. Gil Vandentop, VP of Intel Labs, Director of Corporate University Research, so long and extensive partnership, knowing how we work on basic and primary research, but also then how Intel Labs brings this, because here's the private sector looking at the investability and the return on this as well. So really, Gil sits in the crossroads of that area. Sebastián Garzón, the Executive Director of Alamo Angels. Alamo Angels was founded in 2016, provides community educational resources, but also importantly, deal flow, investor networking, and also early stage companies growth and investment, all with an eye towards economic development here in this region. So Alamo Angels is headquartered with our friends at Velocity Texas Innovation Center. It's a state-of-the-art center for entrepreneurs and expanding business. So here before you, you have folks who are going to bring different perspectives, public, private, venture, and so on. So over to you all.
I guess the floor is mine. This is on. Can you hear me okay? Mm-hmm. We're good to go. Okay, good. So Conversations 2025, we're delighted that that's kicked off in the great state of Texas, and we don't take that for granted. We're extremely proud of that. Aaron Demerson again, President and CEO of the Texas Economic Development Corporation. We have the awesome opportunity to market the state of Texas, both domestically and internationally. And we do that with our good friends with the greater SATX team. Jenna, thank you for being here as well. And we have an awesome opportunity to do that. We're going to set the stage with this panel. We know it's right before break, and we recognize that. And we're going to get you guys in and out of here. But we're going to start with the video to kind of set the stage. And if the video is ready, let's cue that up.
Texas is booming. Texas is fueled by what some are calling the great business migration. Company is not just coming, it's already here. Thousands of workers have been creating the latest Tesla model. Samsung is simply building more semiconductor facilities in Texas. Texas is leading the nation in population growth.
Texas is the future of America.
Whenever they come here to the state of Texas, they all say the same thing, and that is they did not get here soon.
All right, so that's how we start in Texas. I mean, we think we have a business booming economy, a business-friendly climate, and the like. And so we're going to talk a little bit about what keeps that going, what makes us propelled to do even more as we look forward. And so we're going to start with the panelists here. They're going to kind of introduce themselves. It's already been introduced, so we can get right into the Q&A. And so as I ask the questions, you guys answer it, and we'll get conversations going back and forth. And so we're going to start with Corey first and talk about the attractiveness of investment here in our state. And so Corey, why is Texas attracted so much investment from both inside and outside the state in regards to innovation?
Sure.
What are some of the thoughts there?
And I'll, I do work for the Controller's Office, so I'm bringing a government perspective to this. So a lot of the things I'm going to refer to are the things that the state of Texas as a governing body has done to try to pave the way. And I think one of the easiest things, and you can see from that video that Aaron showed, is we've tried to create a business-friendly environment. And that involves both a taxing structure, regulatory structure, the ease to get licenses to do jobs, the supporting structure we have with the Texas Workforce Commission to provide training and framework for others in that. And there's some other comments that have been made this morning that I'm going to repeat here because I think that also feeds to what Texas has done to try to attract investment as far as also looking in the future. So many people have mentioned that Governor Abbott's group, the economic development team, put out a strategic plan looking ahead to the next 5 years. And we have a very strong group there that works very closely with Aaron's group as well as other state agencies to make sure that when a big investor is looking to come to Texas, that all of the different agencies that might have to impact their business are talking in advance to try to streamline that entry into Texas. So this includes TxDOT, if there's going to be infrastructure that's built to support that company, the controller's office, if there's concerns about the franchise tax or sales tax implications of bringing that company to Texas, Workforce Commission, licensing and regulation, as well as the economic development group related to if there's going to be any sort of economic incentives. The other thing that's really helped Texas is that we have a very strong local economic development group. It's very decentralized, where the locals have a lot of power to offer their own incentives. So it's not just state directed. So there are big programs at the state level to help incentivize companies coming. But you'll see that there's a lot of tools in the local toolboxes to do this. And so one of the comments that usually surprises lawmakers is in the economic development corporations that can be developed at all these individual small entities. When you look at the amount of money that's sitting in their coffers to offer incentives to business, it's, and this is an old number, it was like $500 million in just locals having money because they're saving, they're putting that money aside to land those big companies in addition to the small ones that are creating jobs for them. So it's not just the money that's circulated at the highest levels at the state, but it's the state structure that is empowering locals to make what decisions they have to make in their communities to attract businesses through tax increment financing and other types of economic development programs at the local level.
Of course, so you're basically talking at the state level. You have Adriana Cruz and the Economic Development and Tourism team working with the local level. And I pointed out Jenna that's here, so greater SATX and those guys will work at the state team to make sure that at the end of the day, when we're competing with the California or New York, they get to go apple to apple in regards to what they're offering and what we're offering at the state level. You gentlemen have anything else you want to add to that?
Well, I mean, my perspective is most recently around the CHIPS Act, right? And the competition for federal investment. And the big difference I find in Texas is they put skin in the game, right? So I've only been in Texas for about 4 years now. And so I only recently learned that government's only in session every other year. And you would think that would be a disadvantage, but it looks to me like it's an advantage, right? Because at a minimum, you have to plan for 2 years, right? And a lot of other states, they just kind of hand to mouth. They exist hand to mouth, right? And then these opportunities can come up and then, well, we don't have any money set aside in our budget, maybe next year. Well, next year's too late. So that's a big difference. I mean, so that enabled UT Austin with the Thai Institute and Texas A&M stood up something. And I think there's still budget for putting skin in the game. And that means a lot to the federal government. Everybody can talk about, the business enabling landscape that they have, but money talks. It just leads with that.
Yeah, one thing is that Texas, we don't lead with incentives. We don't lead that way. We basically want to showcase the best business climate and work backwards there. Sebastian, anything you want to
I meant lead the country.
I know it. Yeah.
Aaron, what I will, a lot of what I'll be sharing today is more specific to the venture capital side of things. And you mentioned something that I believe is very important. You mentioned New York and Silicon Valley, or California, I think is what you say. And as I'm looking at this through the venture capital side of things, we know that those tend to be the primary hubs in the US. So the question is, why are we now attracting a lot of this startup activity, a lot of this investing activity as it relates to venture capital? And it's because of, in my opinion, a couple of main reasons. Number one, workforce, the talent, right? Like we've got a talent pool through some of the universities that you've mentioned, A&M, UT, and they have different a presence in different cities throughout Texas. So I think that's super important for a lot of these startups and founders building their teams. And then as it relates to other hubs like Silicon Valley and the New York, one of the challenges that these companies have, it's a lot more expensive for them to build in those ecosystems. And after COVID happened, we realized that you don't necessarily have to be there in order to leverage the resources that those ecosystems have. And so we've seen a lot of those activities happening now here in Texas, primarily places like Austin, even though I will say throughout the whole state of Texas, like the 4 main cities, Dallas, Houston, Austin, and then San Antonio, we have been able to capture a lot of that because it's quite honestly, it's cheaper for them to build what they are building in a place like Texas. And it's also more affordable living for them. We do offer a quality of life that perhaps some of these places wouldn't necessarily offer them. So I think that's what I will highlight.
Jenna, we're going to take them on trips with us as well. So we've talked about the business climate that's here, a predictable regulatory climate. When you talk about being in session for only 6 months, that does allow corporations the opportunity to know for the next 2 years that things are going to be the way they are. And so that's important to us. Sebastian, thank you for mentioning the workforce side as well. And we have the great 28 local workforce boards here in the great state of Texas, and one's here in San Antonio, Workforce Solutions Alamo as well. And so there's all good points in regards to why Texas is considered to be number one in a lot of different ways. And those are all good reasons that a CEO and a CFO would think make a lot of sense. And so we'll move to question number 2, and we'll come back to you, Sebastian, with the investors and innovators and the like. And so how can investors and innovators be better connected to allow for deeper and more sustainable partnerships? And so for us to work together from that standpoint, we're doing it somewhat okay or well. How do we take it even to higher height?
Yeah. Again, I'll come back to my angle is always going to be on the venture capital side of things. And for that, I will highlight 3 main items. Number 1, I think leveraging the ecosystems is going to be very important. The second one is co-investment opportunities and raising that up and continue to do them, because there is cases, examples that I can share for our own experience that will exemplify what that looks like. And then the last one is it needs to move beyond capital. It's not just about writing these companies a check, but also supporting them beyond that. So I guess on the first one, as it relates to leveraging the ecosystems, there is a lot that's happening within these ecosystems in terms of resources that the great state of Texas is putting out there. And the more we can leverage them, the longer or the more sustainable those relationships will be between those innovators and these investors. It comes to mind, here in San Antonio, when Rod was making an intro, he said, our parent entity is Velocity Texas. That's one great resource here in San Antonio. We also have Geekdom. Obviously, we have places like universities where we are standing today. You go to Austin and you now see Capital Factory. You go to Dallas and you have Mass Challenge, and I can go on and on, right? The point is the ecosystems already are in place. And while some may be more mature than others, they all have something to offer. So I think that will definitely help leverage those relationships and make them a lot more sustainable. So the second point that I've mentioned was co-investment opportunities. And on that, one of the things that we're doing is, as Texas, we actually have a lot of different angel networks. There's about 12 of them that are actively investing on these startups. And we get together once a month for the purpose of deal syndication. So it turns out that with companies, when you see companies in Shark Tank and they say we're raising X amount of money, it's not like they're raising it from one single individual or a single entity. They typically have to make a round, right? And for the most part, there will be somebody or an entity that will take that lead, but they still need to go and fill it with others. So the more we can collaborate with one another, the better off we'll be in terms of supporting those startups. And so what we do is once a month with the different angel networks, we get together and we have CTAN there in Austin, Central Texas Angel Network, Houston Angel Network, North Texas Angel Network up in Dallas, obviously Alamo Angels here in San Antonio. And we get together once a month for the purpose of deal syndication and just kind of share what's going on within our own ecosystems and how can you contribute towards the investment opportunities that we're making. So very, very tangible example in my opinion. And then the last one is moving beyond capital, right? So sophisticated investors will not necessarily just want to write these companies a check. They want to add value, right? And so that could potentially be just a strategic introduction as an example. For us in San Antonio and specifically with Alamo Angels, we are the only angel investment network that is not only investing in the US, but also looking at emerging markets like Latin America. I understand there is somebody here from Tech of Monterrey, and that's one thing that we've done, right? Like we've invested on 6 companies out of Mexico, 3 are from Monterrey. And how do we add value is there is a cross-border opportunity that is happening with a lot of these startups. And so yes, they obviously go through the Mexican market as they are scaling. But at some point, some of them, not all of them, but some of them may want to make that jump and now come into the US. So we want to invest on those companies, but we also want to have a little bit of a hands-on approach as it relates to supporting them and helping them get to the next milestone.
Yeah.
If they are successful, we are successful as well. So those are just a few examples.
Those are great examples. And Sebastian kind of mentioned they want to come to the United States. And so we want them to come to the US, but our efforts are to get them here in Texas as well. And then Genesis to get them right here in San Antonio in that respect. And so all the communities are working in that regard. You guys want to add anything, Dr. G?
Go ahead.
Just a short one. I would, if you're looking for corporate investment in university research, it's important to start early. You know, don't come with, oh, here's a great idea, here's an NSF proposal that we would like you to sign a letter of support for. When is it due? Oh, next Tuesday, right? It's like, well, yeah. I mean, we expect to be collaborators before we're investors. So I think that's important for that type of investment.
Corey?
So building off both of these. So first I'll start with the collaboration, and this is a little bit less about, you know, because the state can only do so much, but I think where those relationships come into play is that bring ideas to the state early, and that can be through Adriana at the governor's office. But if you foresee that there is a business that wants to come in, that there is a current tax structure, let's say, that is making that problematic, the legislature does come in and try to address some of these things. So right now there's a research and development tax credit that's expiring. It has to be addressed this legislative session or it goes away. There is a business group working with the controller's office, working with the state legislature to create a revamped version of that that is more easily to administer both by the state side as well as the business side, because it has been recognized as such an important factor for the manufacturers that are coming to the state, that this ability to have a franchise tax credit for research and development is important to them. So they came early on, worked together as a partnership with our office and the legislative offices so that when that bill gets proposed, hopefully there is not very much opposition to it, right? Everyone has agreed that this is workable from an administrative standpoint. This is beneficial to the businesses that are coming to the state. So that idea of early collaboration, because if you come to us after something's been passed or we're not in the middle of legislative session, we may have our hands tied. But if you come early, we can start helping work through what our challenges are and understanding what those needs are of the business. And this exists across government. If there's something that needs to be supported through the Workforce Commission or the Governor's Economic Development Group, just talk to us early about what you foresee coming. On the idea of leveraging an ecosystem that exists, all throughout today, we've heard about San Antonio being kind of this cyber hub, and I think that's been recognized even at the government level. So we are also working to mirror that ecosystem, and Governor Abbott, during his State of the State, talked about creating the Texas Cyber Command here in San Antonio. So also decentralizing the work we're doing in Austin, where it doesn't necessarily make sense to build that up in Austin. It makes sense to build it up in San Antonio, where all the resources are to leverage that ecosystem. And when you do that, even with the federal government, that kind of feeds into that sense of talent and structure that needs to be in place in order to help that area thrive for individual businesses as well as the education side.
It's good. I was here in San Antonio just on yesterday where we had the opening of a workforce solutions office, but they're concentrating on cyber and IT, which is pretty amazing. And they're right there at Fort San Antonio doing some things in that regard. And so it begins to make a lot of sense in regards to that. When you talk about sustainable partnerships and the like, Governor Abbott is taking action. And Sebastian, I like the fact that you guys are meeting on a monthly basis or ever so often, because that's where action takes place. That's where it's happening. And so Governor Abbott's been convening the VC guys, the innovator guys, and having these intimate dinners and discussions. And you can imagine what's coming out of that, because he's making phone calls right there on the spot to make sure that business is continuing to happen. And so appreciate the thoughts there. Let's move to the third question that deals with barriers. Dr. You're from Intel, but what barriers or risks could be removed to accelerate investment here in the state? Anything that's out there that's kind of bothering us in a sense?
Well, again, for university research investments, we usually can agree on like what's important and sort of how we're going to try to get there with the research project, but we get stuck on IP. So if and that can take some inordinate amount of time, right? If the lawyers are going back and forth. So if first of all, for industry to invest in the research field, we expect to have NERF, non-exclusive royalty-free, for the most part. Sometimes it's open IP, depending on where it sits in terms of technology readiness. But if the state would have like some sort of master collaboration agreement that schools bought into, and then the companies could come in and just read it and go. This was suggested a few years ago at a higher level, and I don't think it ever happened. Semiconductor Research Corporation, I'm on the board there. I mean, they do have a model, and it's sort of a take it or leave it model. And you can't get everybody to participate, but everyone who can participate can get in fast.
Any other questions there? You mentioned the master collaboration. We're going to hear from 2036, I think. I saw AJ out in the audience. And so those futuristic goals and opportunities, they're probably hearing that. And therein lies the opportunities for Texas to look at it. The risk of barriers. Either one of you guys want to jump in on any of that?
From a venture capital perspective, while we've made a lot of progress, there is still a little bit of a gap that we need to figure out how to bridge that gap. It turns out that there is a lot of venture capital investments happening in Texas nowadays, but it's typically when these companies already have proven some sort of traction. They validated that what they are working on is something that people want to buy. And the biggest challenge is when there is this founder that has this great idea, but they have not gone as far as validating it per se. I don't mean to get too technical, but there's different stages of development, pre-seed, seed, Series A, and beyond. So when they are on this pre-seed stage is when we've seen a lot of those challenges, because as an investor, I just don't necessarily have anything to go by in terms of justifying my investment, other than I think that's a great idea, right? And so there is a lack of funding happening within the pre-seed stage. And at that point, we just need for all of us to be educated in terms of understanding what venture capital is all about. So a lot of people ask me, what do you guys look for when you are investing on these companies? And these are not companies that will give you 10 years of metrical data, right? These are companies that have started 6 months ago, or maybe a year or two ago. And so what we are truly looking at is the team. Do we have conviction that this is the right team? Do we think that this is the founder that can make this, an IPO type of proposition? If the answer is yes, then we have to, let that go and invest on that idea or concept stage. That's one of the biggest challenges. Now, the second one is, I think we talked about corporate, right? So you go to other, what we will consider more sophisticated ecosystems. You go to New York, you go to Chicago, you go to California, and there's a lot of corporate activity happening there. And that's not necessarily the case in Texas, right? There are some places, right? Like you go to Dallas, there is, like the banking industry, and why not? But generally speaking, as compared to other markets, is not that big. And for companies to scale, they can start here in Texas, but in order for them to scale, a lot of times they need that support from these corporates, and we just don't have it yet. And so that will, in my opinion, is the second barrier or the second challenge that we have from a venture capital space.
So employers talking in that space, that's a good segment in the sense of making sure employers are talking with VC guys for potential innovation to come from that.
Yeah, and when you say employers, I don't know if the angle is employing. I think the employment in this case is more, how about if somebody, let's just put an example on the table. If somebody's working on the latest fintech technology, and here locally we have Frost Bank. If Frost were to be open to implementing this technology, perhaps as a pilot program of some sort, that will help them validate that what they're working on is in fact something that will meet the needs of a financial institution, then all of a sudden that unlocks a lot of different opportunities for this company.
Yep.
So that's the type of activity that happens in other places, and we're just not there yet here.
Okay, that's a good one, Corey, for us to work on. How do we get it happening here? And if there are some other examples out there, how we do that in Texas, and what I call we'll Texify it to get it to that level. But that's a good point. Seems like it's a softball for us that we should really address. Corey, you got it.
Yeah, and we don't have a ton, because I think as state representatives, and we get nervous if we're playing in kind of an unknown, is there going to be a return on investment field? There is some funding that I know has come through the controller's office on some energy incubator and funding, which we partner with universities in order to push some of that money out. So usually you don't see government themselves being kind of in that field, but we can work with other entities that are more comfortable working in that field to be funding the administration side of it, right? So that we're not necessarily funding the business development, but we're funding the administration for a university or another well-situated entity to be in this sphere. I think there is a role for government in that. Some of the things that have already been mentioned, I think that the state is doing at the state level to accelerate investment is kind of backward looking. What do we need to do about to support small businesses? Glenn Hammer mentioned the Small Business Freedom Council that was established by the governor that identified regulation and other things that need to be removed or looked at to open up the doors for small business. The Workforce Commission has just introduced a grant for apprenticeship programs that are employer driven so that there's funding at the state level to help support businesses who want to, or universities who want to get into merging jobs and providing opportunities for folks there. The other conversation that came up a lot is infrastructure. So the state has created the Broadband Development Office, and there's $1.5 billion in state money that has been set aside for building the infrastructure related to last mile connection, as well as digital literacy at the controller's office. There's $3.3 billion in federal funds that are kind of up there right now, depending on how things shake out at that level to connect that. And there's a big effort this session by Senator Perry, but has also been an issue of Controller Hager's for a long time related to water infrastructure. I like mentioning this because I'm sure this room all knows it, but we had done a white paper on the kind of the infrastructure cost of artificial intelligence. And the one thing that we try to mention to the legislature, who's really trying to dabble in AI and what do we need to do about AI to support it, is that in order to run a typical data center, there is an extremely high amount of water usage. And so the idea, everyone talks about the energy usage of it and the need for them and the structure Texas has for it, but the water usage is extremely high. And so to run a typical data center, it's about 3 to 5 million gallons of water a day, which is about the equivalent of 30,000 to 50,000 people, like a town. And actually, there's another research that says a 100-word email is like a bottle of water. So for every 100-word email someone asks AI to write, that's a bottle of water for infrastructure. So these are critical things that the government also needs to think about funding, and because it isn't just, even though I think a lot of individual companies are helping support their community and building them, they're not going to come if we don't have a good structure, both energy and water and workforce and all those things. And I agree with you. Incentives are kind of, the state money is like the last thing that people are looking for. They're looking for educated workforce and the infrastructure to support the businesses. So there's a lot of opportunities that the state's looking at to continue to push efforts in that direction to make the environment as attractive as possible so that other folks can come in and continue to build those businesses.
Yep, and the governor's made energy and water emergency items. And so we want to make sure that at the end of the session, we're not set up where corporations will not look at Texas because they can't sustain their business in Texas. And so let's moving forward. You guys thoughts on energy and water, anything along those lines? And
I like what Kerry said, and I think the main message here is keep your emails short.
Yeah.
If you don't have anything
your
else to
water
take
pumps
away out of
flowing.
this session, is keep them short. Save water.
Save water.
No, but that is scary though, right? I mean, SRC has been, they wrote a decadal plan in terms of where the research needs to go, and energy is a key aspect of that research and that of that investment that's needed. And that was like 3 years ago. And the curve of energy usage via compute versus total of the world's energy use, it was looking pretty bad. So I know it's gotten a lot worse, right? And everybody's excited about, okay, well, the advances of AI, and people have now sort of put the energy question in the back of their mind, and it's coming back to bite us, and it's gonna be soon.
so we're holding an energy summit on April 16th for those reasons, and making sure that we're discussing, according to your point, water to cool them down. It takes some water in that regard. And so all that, those are what we call challenges in Texas, but yet opportunities. And so we think by the end of the session, we'll be able to address that. How am I looking on time? 1 minute, 2 minutes? All right, good.
Okay.
So we'll discuss a little bit more, and then we may get you guys back for an early break. The Texas Stock Exchange, that's something that I didn't cue you guys up, but you hear about that as well. Texas Stock Exchange, you hear about the Space Commission. Governor always talks about the 3 things that Texas needs to get right, making sure that we're on top of it with artificial intelligence. That's mentioned. Semiconductors for sure, and then space. That's the 3rd one. And I think this competitive conversation have addressed all of those issues. And so if we were kind of looking at that from you guys' perspective, investments, state comptroller's office, private industry, research and the like, what do you guys, what's the future look like for us here in Texas in those areas?
I'm gonna make just a short, because this is the right room to bring this up. And this is just for information purposes. So there was a mention earlier today about a bill related to artificial intelligence in the state that's currently at the Texas legislature. There are at least 3 that I've seen that have been introduced that have different kinds of framework on them. And I think in government, we mean the best, we try real hard, but we are doing it and we need feedback from the folks who are impacted by it. So if you guys are working in this area of artificial intelligence, and as it relates to cybersecurity in particular related to artificial intelligence and the use of it, being aware of these bills and ensuring that they are supportive and not restrictive for the future growth, because this is something that I think the legislature really wants to get right. But we're trying to do it with maybe not every single piece of feedback that we necessarily need. So I have seen kind of in the realm that there's some comments on both sides, whether, you know, this is a good one or this one's not a good one, but I am happy to share information about what those bills are. So you can be aware of what's going out there and lend your voice to those offices if you have feedback about what is the appropriate way to move forward on creating a framework for AI in state law that doesn't overly restrict the growth of that in the state of Texas. So that's my short pitch.
That's a good pitch. I mean, conversations across America, that's what we're doing today. Conversations across America, and communication is key. We don't want to send a bad bill to the government. He's not going to sign a bad bill from that standpoint, but the conversations, that's so important. I heard that the other day across the table. We have 2 minutes. You guys want to weigh in on that? And then I want you guys to have some closing comments as well.
I think you brought up very exciting opportunities happening nowadays, and for venture capital, we're always contrarians, right? Like rather than thinking what if it goes wrong, is more like what if it goes right. And so think about a couple of things. Number one, the Texas Stock Exchange. In order for investors, angel investors or venture capitalists to make money, this is one of the paths for us to actually make money. We're not giving these companies a loan. We're waiting for them to either get acquired or go and ring the bell in New York. But if we can do it here in Texas, it's even better. So that's exciting, right? And then the second one, things like space, all of those innovations that are happening, they seem so futuristic. Real quick, I share an example out of Austin. One of the main companies that is building humanoids in the US, in the world, quite honestly, it's out of Austin. We've just invested on them. And we had these calls with some of the folks that are working on that. Long story short, I will say, I saw this one movie on Netflix that has the humanoid and the lady is like a nanny and she's cleaning the house and doing all of this. And I thought to myself, well, my kids are gonna get to enjoy those type of resources later down the road. After having that phone call, I know that I'm gonna get to experience that. So things are moving fast.
Wow. Dr. G, Dr. Gill, anything?
No, we're pretty much heads down trying to, improve our own business. So those new businesses, I don't really have much of an opinion, but I wanted to say thanks for being invited. I've been in Texas just for a few years, hadn't been to San Antonio before. Today I've learned what's going on here, what's going on in the port, San Antonio, and so yeah, it's sort of opened my eyes to what else, another resource in Texas. So thank you.
So before the water drops, so it's at the end, and so we're going to wrap up here. And this is a 10-second deal. Anything, Sebastian, Corey? All right, we're good to go?
Yeah.
Clear on that end. So the secret sauce in Texas is when you bring together the words workforce, economic development, and education. Workforce, economic development, and education. You couple that with elected leadership who gets it, elected leadership, the comptroller's office, Comptroller Hager, Governor Abbott, then we're well on our way to success, and we do that quite well in Texas. And so we want to thank, on behalf of the panel, thank you for allowing us to be here. Break is next for you guys, but you've been a great audience, and let's give a round of applause to the panel as well. Thank you.